here are 10 reasons why you might want to avoid getting a unit at Paradisiac Beach Club. Number 10. Active construction. Now, bear in mind that this is a 1,000-unit development that will be completed in phases. What that means is that if you get a unit now, you will eventually receive your home in an active construction area, and it will remain so for several years. Now, whereas your particular phase might be completed and there's no active construction there, construction in the neighboring phases might mean a lot of noise pollution, dust pollution, heavy equipment and vehicles using main entrance roadways, and possibly frequent disruptions of water and electricity infrastructure, as is common with any large-scale development. Additionally, some community infrastructures and amenities may not necessarily be completed until the entire development is completed, meaning you might have to wait on your dream lifestyle a little bit longer than you have in mind right now. Number 9. The infrastructure. This area is in its incipient phase of its development, and as such, the national utility infrastructure will tend to lag behind. As it stands, there are over 1,000 units at Richmond, and one thing that caught my attention was the fact that Richmond residents have their own independent water supply. Now, I don't know for sure if this is a reflection of the reliability of the water supply in the area in general, but huge residential developments usually require significant upgrade to the existing utility infrastructure that exists. And whereas I have absolutely no doubt that these will be resolved in due time, you might find yourself having to suffer temporary inconveniences. Number 8. It's very expensive. Well, this should really be the first item on the list. The cost of real estate has skyrocketed in Jamaica in recent decades. The prices of the units are ridiculously high. Yes, now I'm aware of the principles of supply and demand, and the state of the economy and the state of the real estate sector. So I'm not necessarily saying that the units are overpriced or should have or could have been cheaper. All I am saying is that the average person will not be able to afford a unit here. I know for sure that I can't. But then again, maybe the units were deliberately priced to avoid or filter out certain people. Who knows? If you are up to the task, then you can actually build a much better unit for much cheaper. But then again, getting a quality and reliable contractor in Jamaica is a little bit like Russian roulette. So you could easily end up paying a lot more and end up with a lot less. Or even worse, you could end up with nothing at all. Number 7. 20% deposit required. For many persons, the required initial deposit of 20% may just be a deal breaker. Not only do you have to contend with the high costs of the units themselves, but the 20% deposit could actually completely pay for some homes in lower-end gated communities. Just think about it. The deposit for a 3-bedroom Emerald is actually $160,000 US. That's 24 million Jamaican dollars for the deposit only. For the Diamond, the deposit would be about 400,000 US or about 60 million Jamaican. Now we're just talking about the deposit itself. All of this while there are developments that require as little as 5% deposit, and on average the requirement is 10 to 15%. Again, this may be strategically designed to filter out some persons and make the community more exclusive. Interestingly, I have made a video about 10 reasons why you would want to buy a unit at Paradisiac, exclusivity being one of them. So for that and the other 9 reasons, just click the link in the top right hand corner or in the descriptions below. Number 6. The insects. Whereas I do believe in the eventual development of the area in general, the overall growth is somewhat in its incipient phase. The bare fact of the matter is that the development is being built on virgin lands and will require clearing of woodlands to do so. Even upon completion, the neighboring properties will likely also be with woodlands. Now this will invariably and expectedly lead to insect nuisance, maybe even rodents, bats and strays. Now you can fumigate the land and this should solve a lot of the creepy crawly problems, but you will still be left with flying insects such as mosquitoes, bugs, moths and even cockroaches. Now I'm sure this issue will become less significant as the development grows and the area develops, but until then you might find yourself with a few unwanted winged neighbors. Number 5. The real estate bubble. Now I know most viewers here are old enough to clearly remember the impact of the 2008 financial crisis, along with the telltale signs leading up to and the effects after the fact. At the moment, it is difficult not to recognize some eerily similar signs regarding the world economy. The extremely fast growth and crazily inflated price of real estate locally has only really compounded this concern. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, nor am I proclaiming an imminent real estate collapse. I mean, there are actually several valid arguments for converting your cash into hard assets right now. At the same time, you do not want to ignore the writings on the wall. It is definitely something worth looking into. Number 4, it is not the best Airbnb option. A lot of persons were inquiring about whether or not Airbnb would be allowed in this development, and the answer is yes, it is allowed. So now I know that a lot of persons are seeing this as a gold mine for Airbnb, and it may very well be. We can all only really speculate. But if I was a gambling man, I would not necessarily bet on it to be. Wait, just allow me to explain. Across the road from this development, there is the ever-desired Richmond Estate, which is actually quite a nice place to stay. It is a property that also allows beach access, and 3-bedroom properties here are available for as low as $100 per night. Now, inject another 1,000 units at Paradisiac and supply increases dramatically, and we know what happens to demand when supply increases. In contrast, there are much cheaper units closer to Ocherios that will yield double or even triple the returns per night on Airbnb. Number 3, Airbnb guest nuisance. Since we're on the issue of Airbnb, this will invariably lead to the issue of Airbnb guest nuisance. Now, you might not know what that is. Well, you can just ask the residents at Richmond Estate and they will tell you. Whenever there's a gated community that is heavily featured on Airbnb, the long-term residents tend to become uncomfortable and unhappy in their own homes. This is primarily due to the fact that Airbnb guests are usually not properly briefed and therefore are not very knowledgeable regarding the community rules and guidelines. This typically leads to a general breakdown and eventual chaos regarding the implementation and enforcement of the community rules. Now, this may include, but not necessarily limited to, things like loud music, noisy neighbors, gross misuse of public spaces, littering, obscenities, violation of the dress code, and things like that. Of course, you can make a report to the association or even Airbnb, but the very process of making that report just adds to the stress. And do you really want to be that neighbor that is constantly having to report to the association? I think not. Number 2, storm surges. I'm not trying to scare anyone, and this thought may even be considered irrational by many. But Jamaica is subjected to many storms annually, and whereas most storms and storm surges will not be a problem for this particular development, the idea of normal storms are slowly becoming a thing of the past. More and more often, we are seeing superstorms, which are far more powerful and more frequent than yesteryear, with global warming indicating that things will get a lot worse before they get better. Additionally, being on a fault line means that any earthquake at sea could easily send several tsunamis along the coast. This is an issue that is not unique to this development and applies to all coastal communities. However, it is worth noting that the natural reef-protected beaches and the rocky coastline should provide a little bit more protection than the average coastal community in Jamaica. To have an idea of what the beaches and coastlines look like, then you can check out my video on the beaches of Paradisiac Beach Club in the top right hand corner or in the description below. Number 1. The termites. Yes, I said termites. Now, I specifically did not include the termites in the insect section because the majority of insects will leave as development intensifies. But the termites are here to stay. That is because the general geographic location has been very heavily plagued with subterranean termites. If you don't believe me, just have a look at this excerpt from the Richmond Estate Homeowners Manual. It reads, "Regrettably, the location of the property is in a zone that is adversely affected by subterranean termites. We are able to manage any possible damage by the termites by treating each lot. Treatment is done by a reputable company. We provide each homeowner with a warranty certificate for 3 years. Within this time, any treatment and/or damages are at the expense of Richmond. Thereafter, the homeowner is responsible for the treatment of their home. It is recommended that the homeowner continues treatment and obtain a warranty from a reputable company." Now, assuming that a lot of persons will not necessarily live in these homes, you might find yourself visiting your property only to find a lot of termite damaged or infested furniture and or infrastructure. And there you have it. That's my top 10 reasons for thinking twice before getting a unit at Paradisiac Beach Club.